Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Space Between podcast. Today I have Andy and Cameron back on with me to discuss what else? The Dave Matthews Band. Guys, thanks so much for joining me again on this episode.
Thanks for having us.
I hope that everyone had a wonderful Christmas, and here we are in 2023, and we all know what the topic is when the new year changes. Who can guess what I'm thinking? Is it the tour schedule?
That and I want to make more shows. At least that's mine.
Well, absolutely. But it's like the rumbling in the background that everyone right now is talking about tour dates and when they're going to be released, which is funny because that's the topic. Every early January is when is it going to be, when we kind of really already know the answer to that, right? Like it's pretty standard when they put out those dates. So no need to worry. And hey, why would you start the new year with anxiety? Like chill out and just know that the Dave Matthews Band is going to happen, right? Of course. That's how we should be. So this week, I want to talk about what 2023 looks like for you guys personally, what you think is going to be a twist in this year from years prior. And then Cameron had sent me a couple of articles that I want to share and each of our perspectives on those. So we'll get to those later. Guys, tell me what you think 2023 holds for the Dave Matthews Band.
Oh, I am hoping that they open up again in Texas and they keep Austin on the tour list. Prior to last year, they would hit Austin every other year, and we have an amphitheater out at the F1 track, and it's about 20 miles outside Austin. It's literally in the middle of nowhere, and it's a horrible venue. And I didn't blame the band at all for only stopping by every other year, and they've only done it 3-4 shows. But now that we have this beautiful new arena smack dab in the middle of downtown on the campus of the University of Texas, and it's amazing. The sound was amazing when we went. I'm hoping that's a staple. And
have they ever
keep coming
opened
back
twice in Texas, like year to year?
Yes.
Or do they tend to bounce around?
No. Well, recently, when I say recently, I mean the last, 7 or 8 years, the tours have started in Texas with Woodlands and Dallas. And then if they throw Austin in there, it's typically in the middle of the week, like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And Woodlands and Dallas is typically Friday, Saturday.
Do you think we hit Texas early due to the heat? Is that the reason?
That can't be it, because the heat is horrendous in the middle of May. It's just getting started. So I think
if you imagine later, middle July, August in Texas, in South Texas. That's never going to happen. Everyone knows that's a mistake. So you got to start in Texas. If you're going to do Texas, you start in Texas, or you end like October would be a lovely month in Texas.
Would be great. Earlier.
Let's close it down in Texas. That might be a better plan.
They used to close it.
Yeah.
I agree. They wouldn't. They used to play. This was back in the day, and I miss these days. They used to do 2-night stands at Woodlands. They used to play 2 nights in a row. And they were back in, and when they would do that, it was in September, like just before Gorge, like where the usual slot is for Denver nowadays.
That's a lovely time.
I miss those days.
And
that would be so
freezing
nice
when they're here in Colorado. So having the opportunity to start maybe closer to the West Coast and work their way back across. They're not playing out in an outdoor amphitheater in hats and gloves and scarves.
Oh, no, thanks. You keep that weather. Stay here.
Well, I think, with the addition of, what was it called? The brand new in Austin where they opened, what's the name of it? The Moody Center. So yes. So from what I understand, just briefly, being the Texan that I am, but don't like to necessarily admit that. I know, I've read a lot about that building. And then of course, oh gosh, what's his name? Matthew McConaughey, his presence and help and all of that. And so here's what I know. Since I got to visit there last year, it was an expensive building. I know that they need acts there to help pay for this, millions of dollar facility that is so beautiful and so wonderful and right on the University of Texas, like just right there. So I look that they are going to be saying yes to everyone. So I think Dave Matthews will definitely come back next year to Austin. And if they do, I think that's a venue that everyone needs to go to, not for the venue. The venue is, of course, it's brand new. It's wonderful. It's all those things, but it's Austin that makes the difference. Mm-hmm. That town, and here Andy lives in Austin. It's just a contagious city. It's one of those cities. I think this might actually be one of y'all's taglines, like "Keep Austin Weird." Is that right, or something like that?
It is it, and the other is "Welcome to Austin. Please don't move here."
Yeah, everybody else is though. Everyone's moving to Austin, and that's the home of, the new, is it Tesla or what is it that moved to Austin?
There's a new plant out there from Tesla. Absolutely.
Yeah. So all of the Californians are moving to Texas, and Texas is going to be a shit show before we know it. So I don't know. Let's hurry up and do DMV and then get on out of Texas.
And Texans are moving to Colorado, so there'll be plenty of room.
And Arkansas, which we have our beautiful Rogers amp. And the Dave Matthews Band actually does come here. So come on back any year, Dave. You're welcomed. I'll bring cookies, all of the things. So, all right, guys. So 2023, what's besides Austin? What's a place you'd really like to see on the map that maybe hasn't been visited recently?
A great question. I don't know. I think, I know Alpine's going to be skipped this year.
For sure.
I think they alternate it, but one that hasn't been on there, I think the first one that always comes to my mind, and it's everybody's mind, is Red Rocks, but we know it's never going to happen.
Right. What would we have to do? I mean, is the band too big? That's what I've heard. They're too big, like the production side of it. It's all too much. Does that sound right?
Possibly. I've seen large production shows there. It's certainly possible, but I think there's more to it when you look at the size of Red Rocks and the size of Fiddler's Green, and just with taking care of all of their equipment. There's definitely, I think it poses some logistical challenges. I still think it's doable, but that'll forever be at the top of my list.
For sure. And I think everyone else too. I mean, can you imagine if they were to put that on their schedule, trying to get tickets for that? Good luck.
It would blow up. I think, what's the capacity of Red Rocks? It's like 10,000 or something like that. And if I remember correctly, it's like 10,000 and maybe just maybe a shot under. But I mean, you've got venues on the tour with lawns that hold more than 10,000.
Right.
So I could see why, but I think it's more of a destination. I think it's more of it's one of everybody's bucket lists. And
do tickets to Red Rocks cost more because of the venue? Like,
I would do terrible things to be able to go to a Red Rocks.
So yes. So people would pay more to see them there. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, although.
Red Rocks holds 9,545 people.
Yikes!
And I was here the year they sold out 4 nights in a row at Red Rocks.
Oh my God, that would be amazing!
4 nights in a row.
4 nights in a row.
When was this?
They did an extra night during Hurricane Katrina, and it was all
right.
Red Rocks is not.
It's not.
That's
right.
Even there as a possibility.
Well,
I think it makes it.
We don't know that for sure, but here's when I would imagine that would happen if it ever does happen. Let's say 2035. That's when it's happening, or 2030.
Maybe on their farewell tour.
2031, their 40th anniversary, or maybe I think 45, because they're not. I don't know about 50 years. That's 20 more years, guys. I don't think we have that in us, but 10 more years. I think you do think we have 20 more years.
I do. I don't know about them.
You have, of course, you. I mean, as a band. Do we have 20 more years? Here's what I'm thinking. And this came to me the other day, and it was like an epiphany of like, oh my God, maybe this is what's happening. And maybe this is hallucination. But when I think about Buddy stepping in to play the drums at the Gorge, I'm thinking like Was all of that meant to happen to show us the flexibility within the band? And then with Carter being one of the ones that we look to age out first, only because, my God, how hard is it to be a drummer on your hands for that long? And he's 65. I mean, just the joints and all of the hand problems that we know he must have. Is Buddy the replacement for him? Well, that's a hard question. And of course, no one knows the answer, but I can see that being such a wonderful transition. It would take away, but if that's what we had to move to, because at some point we're going to have to look at alternates. I mean, life is only so long. And so do we shut down the whole band because one can no longer go on? Or do we start moving people to a different position and then adding on? What do you think?
It's clear that they're adaptable. Just from that experience that you mentioned, they can adapt. When, tragedy happens, they can adapt. When, life gets in the way, they find a way to adapt. So I think they'll find a way collectively to continue as long as they can, and
right.
Making some adaptations, and hopefully the fans and supporters will stay along on the ride.
I think they will. I think that the people that are true fans, not of just, all encompassing fans, people that love it on a personal basis, professional basis, understand everything. I think that, with change is not always a bad thing. Change can be new and exciting, and it can add to what we have now, to build upon it. So that's not something I even really like to talk about with my friends, is what does our book look like when this part of it is over? What do we do without the Dave Matthews Band? And that's such a dreary topic, but here we're all in our early 40s, late 30s. I hope we all live very long lives. And so I try to imagine that I'm just going to celebrate every year that we get and every tour that we get, because I can't imagine that it will go on that much longer. If we have 10 more years, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with that. And so I'm excited about 2023 and wherever that takes me. It may take me nowhere but Rogers, Arkansas, and I'm totally cool with that. But what are your thoughts on all that? And do you ever think that way? What am I going to do once this joyride is over? Or do you just try to never think about it?
I don't. I don't. All I know is we got this year coming up.
That's right. Right. What's the longest break the band has ever taken without going on tour?
They took 17 off. 2007. Well, not really. Dave and Tim still toured, and they still had Caravan.
There's not been any circumstances where they've taken multiple years off at a time. No. As far as tour goes.
No, not to my knowledge. No.
Just goes to prove, or at least I like to think that proves in a way of how much this is a passion and not a job. Because a job, no matter what that job is, no matter if you love it or not, 30 years will take a toll on you, especially 30 years on the road.
Caravan was not 17. It was 2011. That's when the last time the band didn't tour also, but they still did some Caravan shows. 2017, they did take official year off, but like I said, it was Dave and Tim literally the whole time. And I think Boyd had his Crystal Garden stuff going too, and a lot of people were hitting those.
Nursing home, we're going to tune into YouTube and be like, oh, that Andy, he put up all those videos, and I'm so glad.
Dave Matthews Band, the Hologram Spectacular.
The hologram. Oh God, yes. That's the kind of concerts we'll be seeing in 2040. It's all holograms. Well, let's start off with reviewing the Washington Post article. It was personally my favorite. This article was by Suzette Hackney in 2013. And this again was in the Washington Post. So that I love a good perspective story. I love any other perspective than mine, because mine is usually just the wrong. And so I love reading other people's perspectives. And this one was really, really great. Thank you, Cameron, for sending this to me. So she just briefly talking about this. She talks about how it was 1993, of course, college parties and the kind of music that she rock, blues, jazz, folk, classical, world, and pure funk. Those sounds together. I can see each one of those. Rock, definitely can see that in the Dave Matthews Band. Blues, absolutely. Jazz, definitely. Folk, absolutely. Classical, yes. World and pure funk, yes, absolutely. Just to see all those put out together, all those adjectives, I'm like, yes, this is exactly what it was. She said, she heard the music and just went around and was like, who is singing this song? That it struck her just like, this is a band that I need to know who it is. She was told it was a group out of Virginia and that its live shows were being taped and passed around at all the college campuses. And so she found the tape owner and she drilled him with all the questions like, who is this? Who is this Dave Matthews Band? And he told her, well, they've just been playing a lot of gigs around the university. And so the guy at the party told her that a friend had sent him a tape of the performance and he wasn't sure if the band was ever going to take off or not, but that him and his frat brothers really liked it. So she kind of dug into this, and the way she explained it was so beautiful. And again, this was 2013 in the Washington Post. Her name is Suzette Hackney. So if you haven't read this article, I think it's wonderful. But what really got me in the first part of her article is, and what kind of got me down the rabbit hole of Stefan was, I'm going to read this part of this article to you. So it said, in fact, I learned more than I liked. Matthews, the lead singer, was a white guy from South Africa. The bassist, Stefan Lessard, was a prodigy who dropped out of school to do what he loved. And the majority of band members looked like me. Yet when I went to my first show a year later, I saw no one else in the crowd who did. And so she's talking about being an African-American fan at a Dave Matthews Band concert and how she looked around and didn't feel like anyone else was there that was like her. And so, Cameron, tell me, you said that you saw a lot of similarity in these stories to the story that you have in your Dave Matthews Band career. So tell me a little bit how you found this, first of all, and then what your thoughts were second.
So full disclosure for everyone who's listening.
And I'm black, y'all. And I'm blacker than black. And I'm black.
Yes, I am a Black Dave Matthews Band fan. I'm proud of it. I represent the band, and I represent what Dave Matthews Band fans look like.
That's right.
But yeah, my cousin, he grew up in a different kind of environment and community and school than I did. So he was exposed to more different types of music outside of what we would normally listen to. I listened to a lot of music, anything other than Dave Matthews Band, really. But in my household, I heard jazz and blues and funk. And when I heard Under a Table and Dreaming and I heard Satellite for the first time, it rang so true. And I can still to this day remember sitting listening to this to the tape in my cousin's driveway, and we just played it all day nonstop. And from there, it's just been it was nonstop fandom. And I remember we went to our first show at Blossom Music Center in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. And like I said, everything that she wrote about in that article was my first experience. There to the point where I was walking around on the field in the lawn because we had really crappy seats, and somebody walks up to me with all these lanyards on. I didn't know who this guy was, but he starts talking to me. He's like, "Oh, where are you guys sitting at?" So I show him our tickets, like we're way back here on the lawn. He takes our tickets. He hands us 2 front row center stage tickets. Walks us to the front of the stage. Lo and behold, it was his Dave tour manager. Didn't know who this guy was.
Oh my goodness.
He takes me and my cousin and just takes us to the front of the stage. And it was just, what a way to reel you in, and just looking at all these people up the stage who look like you, but you're in the crowd. It's like, well, I'm glad I'm here with my cousin, so I feel a little more comfortable, and I don't know how I'm going to be perceived. But it was all a good experience. Like I've never had a negative experience. You walk into that place and you're an individual. And I think that's what's,
that's right.
It's always been an all-inclusive environment. It may have not have, initially started off as diverse as it is now, but walking in there in the early 90s, it was an inclusive environment. So I think that's one of the things that stuck with me and probably why I've stuck around for so long.
And the community is so great. Well, first off, Cameron, I'd like to point out and say that I can appreciate that the song that roped you in, Satellite, is the one that, for whatever reason, most people hate. So I love that. I never got why people hate on Satellite so much. I love it. But see, and that's the other thing about the community is it's so odd because some of these descriptions, I'm Hispanic, I'm not Black. I've experienced discrimination to some degree, but nowhere near on the level I could imagine African Americans do. But still, I don't see very many Hispanic people there. Some, sure, Black people as well too. It's really odd, and it's a. When you told me we were going to talk about this, and I sat and thought about it, I've never really sat and thought about that. The reason why, I know the stereotype is it's white people music and the frat boy music, but I never really thought of the reason. I definitely have, but it's what blows my mind is this is like Cameron said, though, when you go to the show, the community is so the complete opposite. It's so inclusive. It's you're an individual. You're just there. No one cares about anything else and they're literally happy that, hey, you're there too. And that's it. And that would be the environment you'd imagine you'd see people from all walks of life. And it isn't. It is predominantly, I would say, 95% white people. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know why that is. Because this music is built and touches everybody. I mean, from what I understand, it does. Anyone who eventually gives it a listen, eventually like, yeah, that's pretty good.
The Black community music is a big thing. It speaks to history, culture, politics, socioeconomical issues. So it's really, deep rooted. And it's, so it's kind of, going to a Dave Matthews Band show might seem a little off from what you may be expected to listen to. Like I said, I listen to music from all genres, but yeah, I've never, being a person on the inside, you don't understand what it's like to be on the outside and kind of why, the music is perceived the way that it is. So it's definitely perplexing because I was drawn from the first time I heard it. And it wasn't, I didn't have to get, looped into it or hear it over and over again. It was just that song in my cousin's driveway. All right, let's do this.
Let's move to the next article, so we were reading, if you want to read these articles so that you know what in the world we're talking about. The first article we talked about was from the Washington Post. It was in 2013 by Suzette Hackney, and the name of the article was Life as a Black Dave Matthews Band Fan. Now we're switching over. This is from 2019, so more recently, and this was in the Vice. It was a Vice article. This is by Char. I hope I'm saying this right. Char Adams, Char Adams. Is it Char? Char. Okay. See, I knew I was going to mess it up. So Char wrote another. It's a lot longer article, but I think it's a lot deeper and it gives you a better look of everything that she's. What are your thoughts on this particular article? So Cameron gave it to me to read. We gave it to Andy to read. And so tell me what your thought was on this particular article.
Well, that one I related to probably the most just because hands down, every single thing she experienced, I experienced verbatim, probably in order, all the way to the point of, I need to tell this girl that I'm dating that this is my favorite band. And we'll see how that goes.
So how did it go?
It all worked out.
That's good.
Virtually, I met my wife, who I'm married to now, so that's all that matters.
Good.
But she loves the band too. But it was a whirlwind of experiences and the anxiety of going to that first show and like, what's this going to be like? And just getting in there and you looking around and it's like you're in this place with tens of thousands of people and somehow you feel just a little alone. And then eventually, show after show, you start to feel less alone and you feel more comfortable because your experience isn't changing.
Right.
You're not you see people that they're not giving you that weird perplexed look anymore. And I can remember, making eye contact with, Dave from the front row and looking over at Leroy and just feeling proud seeing this guy, being another saxophone player. And it was a whirlwind of experiences. But as I said, the anxiety went, started to go away eventually, and the fears went away. You could just, eventually you just start to feel comfortable in knowing that this is just a community you're a part of, and you should, be proud to be a part of that community. You shouldn't be ashamed to love what you love who you love, listen to what you want to love. You should not be ashamed of that.
I think that
it's a great experience because this might be this person's first experience, and they may feel a little more comfortable too. So it's important to acknowledge each other when we see each other at shows. But I've seen an increase, especially out here in Colorado. I'm seeing more and more of more diversity weeded into the crowd. So it's still not, I wouldn't say it's a huge percentage, but it's been significant, at least from what I can see, going to the same venue consistently in Colorado every year.
Hello, everybody. This is Dave Rich from the Eddie Casino Band out in Las Vegas. We're really excited to get this journey going, celebrating our music, our original music, on all platforms. We just released our first single over Labor Day weekend called Eddie Casino. If you're looking for new music, look out for our next single coming out to Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Music. These guys in the band are really excited to get started playing music for you all. If you like Tom Petty, Zach Brown, Jason Mraz, Dave Matthews Band, Rob Thomas, Jimmy Buffett, Pink Floyd, Stapleton, Bare Naked Ladies, Goose, Billy Strings, Sting and the Police, a ton of influences that we bring to the table. Hope you enjoy our music and look forward to seeing you soon live on stage.
Well, I like to see so many young people that are giving the band a chance, whether they're drugged there by their parents or they scored free tickets. I'm just so thankful that they're there to try to open their mind and see, let's see what a 50-year-old man could do with a guitar, because I bet that it could be pretty good. My daughter, she's looking at me right now like, Mother, there's nothing cool about Dave Matthews Band. But so I get excited when I see young people or people that this is their first concert or Dave Matthews experience, and they're 40. So they've known, but this was their first opportunity in their life to really go and chase their, what were their dreams back when they were young. Because there's not a lot of bands that we listened to in the 90s or even in the 2000s that are still pumping out music and still on tour every year. So it says a lot for the band. What is a place in 2023 where you personally, besides Austin, where you want to try to, and besides Denver, where would you like to try to venture off to this year?
Oh, for me,
if money is no object. I mean, if money, well, you have to preface it with that, because that's
it's the two that always elude me for some reason is Alpine and SPAC. And Alpine's not going to happen this year only because it's probably going to be rotated out. SPAC is just so expensive, and something always comes up. And I was going to go a couple of years back. A really good friend of mine, she was up there and trying to get me to go up to the last second, and then I got hurt. And I got out here working in the pasture with something with my foot, and that kind of went to shambles. But it's SPAC. I would love to try and make SPAC, but something always happens. Something always happens leading up to my plans with SPAC, and they just never fall through. Never.
I've heard that is one of the most beautiful pavilions, and I've never been to Upper New York, but I hear just the land itself is beautiful. So that's on my list as well. That's not going to happen this year, but one year I would love to go to New York, but it's far, and New York is expensive.
Yeah.
in general. So Cameron, if money's no object, where would you like to go this year?
My daughter's hammering me about the gorge, so we
Yeah.
might just have to find a way to make it happen. That may be our vacation for the
I
summer.
think that's a wonderful vacation. I mean, it's going to fill your heart, your soul, and it's going to do it all. So it'll be worth it. And your daughter.
I can't tell you. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you, Renae.
No, you're fine.
I can't tell you anything that anyone else already hasn't, but it's absolutely indescribable. I mean, for them to go and have that be their first time and to be there with them, that'd be amazing. My son is 18 this year, and he's finally asked, "Hey, I want to. Can we go to the gorge this year?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's go. I'll try and figure that out. I'll take you," because he's been I've taken him to a couple of shows here in Texas, and I think I took him in 2016, and he definitely has his own taste of music, and it's far off of Dave, but he still likes Dave. And just out of the blue, it's the whole rap and all that stuff, and he's definitely into all that, and which is fine. It's his taste.
Fine. Yeah, it's just different.
But, so, and I know he still likes Dave, because when we drive around and have Dave on, he still bobs the head and mouths the words, because whether he likes it or not, he was raised on it. So
for sure, whether they admit it or not. You're like, I got video to prove it.
Yeah, and I've taken him to a few shows, and he had a blast. But it's kind of fallen off since he's gotten his own identity in music.
Sure.
And then a couple of months ago, out of the blue, he just asked me, "Hey, can we go to Gorge?" And I almost didn't know what to say. Obviously, the answer is yes, but I almost didn't know what to say. I was like, "Yeah, let's try and figure that out. I'll take you. I'll take you this time."
Well, look, it may be like a parenting reunion at the Gorge this year for you guys.
That'd be awesome.
It might need to make it happen, because I'm really meaningfully trying to figure out if I can make this work and figure out, like I said, make just a long vacation out of it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Seattle itself is I've heard wonderful. So, beautiful. To add 3 nights of Dave on top of that, you can't lose with that kind of vacation. There's something for everyone.
Coming, Renae?
That's a really tough question. 2023 is going to be a tough year for me to travel. My kids are I literally have a kid in Brazil right now. So I just have so much going on with my kids that I'm going to have to come last, I think, this year. And that's okay. That's just, it's a great season of life, but we'll see. We'll see what I'll probably be at 10 this year. Who really knows what's going to happen? Yes. And they would love that. So I'm going to try to bring some kids to one of them, but thank you again, guys, for doing this. I want to talk about one more thing that's just kind of been on my heart. As far as using this podcast as a platform, which I believe that you should try to do. If you have a platform in any way, whether it's small or large, you should try to use it for good. And so I have been thinking about family members that really are going to the next level to help not only, I guess, stand behind the Dave Matthews Band, but to, again, just do good in the world. And so people like Jamie Henry, they come to mind when they're raising money on the side in the name of Dave Matthews Band, but all for good and all for others to really just be the servants that we should be. And so if you know someone, if you're listening and you know someone that has an incredible heart and really has gone out of their way to try to raise money for a special cause or a charity group, I'd really like to designate one podcast totally to speaking to those people who are behind some kind of charitable event, so that this podcast can do good as well, because we really want to do more than just entertain. We really want to make a difference in this world. And I know that Cameron and Andy had both said, hopefully we can meet up at a concert this year and do something before a concert, have a live podcast. Well, absolutely. We plan to do those things, but it will also be as a charitable cause, because this is not for nothing. This is not just for fun. This really is to give back and to prove that, we don't have to prove to anybody, but for myself, this is what I want for myself. If for no one else, I'm doing it for me, because I need to make a difference in this world. And I love this community. And there's so many amazing people that build this community who are doing so much for so many other people. And I just believe that should be highlighted so that if it doesn't make it past one other person, at least they know that if they ever hear the Dave Matthews Band, they're going to think back of all the good things that did come out instead of, all the frat boy, blah, blah, blah crap. Like, let's think about the good things that the Dave Matthews Band family is doing. And so I definitely want to use a podcast just to highlight those charities, the So Damn Lucky crew, all of that. Just thank you so much for all the support that you have done throughout the years. And so again, if anyone knows someone that is like Jamie Henry, the angel that she is, please message me or Andy or Cameron and let us know so that we can attempt to put that together. Guys, thank you so much for being on another episode. It's always such a joy to have you. And everyone have a great week. Next Thursday, we'll have another lineup up on podcasts again. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And for now, we're just on Instagram under the space between _pod. Facebook is coming. So stay tuned for that, guys. And thank you so much again for another episode of The Space Between.